Hey guys, good morning. Good morning. Good morning.
Right. Tab we under, Brenda? Is it one? I can get mine to work. Make sure Zoom is going.
There's a gentleman outside. I guess he's next. He needed to borrow my phone. So if he comes in or something, I said, okay.
Like one of our people or some random person?
Some random dude just walked in and he showed me his phone. He said, I have no service. He's up here. I think he's coming before you guys.
Oh.
I'm looking at him. Ashley, if he walks out, let me know. All right.
I don't think it's for us, but I'm trying to make sure our Zoom is working. All right. Morning, guys. I'm John Kirtley. I'm the director of the board. I'm going to tell you a little bit about kind of who you're talking to at this table this morning and a couple things about our procedure. On this side of the table, we are all staff members here at the board. Myself, Dr. Brenda McCready, who's our assistant director, Miss Ashley Bales, who's our legal counsel. On the other side of the table, we have three of our pharmacy board members, Dr. Clint Boone, Dr. Lenore Newsom, who's the chair of our informal committee, and Dr. Brian Jolly today. In this procedure, and I'm gonna let you guys introduce yourselves here in just a second. We call this an informal conference because in many ways it's kind of like mediation. We're going to have a conversation back and forth across the table. And at the end of that conversation, the board members are going to have some suggestion for what they want to do about the conversation. Most important thing for you guys is you can either agree or disagree with whatever it is they suggest. If you agree, we go forth with whatever action they have suggested for us. And if you disagree, it's your chance to kind of make one of two choices. Either one, say, forget this application and walk away, or to request a hearing before the full board at a later date. Full board is all 8 board members, hearing officer, court reporter. It's just a more formal process than what we do for informal conference. With that, before I turn over to Ms. Bales to give us a quick overview, or maybe actually Dr. McCready, if you want to introduce yourselves and tell us who you are.
Okay, I'll start off. So my name is Carlos Cruz. Thanks for having us. We are pharmacy. Polaris Pharmacy Services is based out of Fort Lauderdale. We have 21 pharmacies. We are predominantly in the long-term care space. We're a closed pharmacy. We have also acquired recently corrections pharmacy. Our CEO, David Rombro, has been a pharmacist for 42 years. He says he was around when Moses parted the sea. And, you know, he's run PBMs, worked retail, audited PBMs, done long-term care, obviously, for the bulk of his life, and also ran a corrections pharmacy. So he's been at it for a long time. We want to be very transparent. He's got an impeccable reputation, and NABP, according to Al Carter, you guys are there in Fort Lauderdale of 2025. So you're right up the street from our pharmacy. So we look forward to having you. And you take it from here.
My name is Jason McDowell. I'm a pharmacist in Nashville. I've been a pharmacist for a little over 20 years. I've been with Polaris going on 4 years this September, and I will be the PIC for the record.
Okay, on this application. Okay. So what I'll do, whenever we have, especially sometimes new applications or business models that we ask for further review, we have kind of a staff presentation of what issues we identify with it, and then the board members and staff will have a conversation with you about that application.
Well, and John and Brenda and Ashley, thank you for your help. And the flying fish was very good.
Did you visit the wall of Billy Bass's in there?
Yeah, I saw the names and we're like, yeah, do we just go up with a Sharpie and write our name? But no, you got to bring one in.
You got to bring one in, yeah.
So now we know.
They used to say if you help them fill their wall, they'll fill your stomach. So if you brought one in to give them for their wall, they'd give you a free meal.
Yeah,
Back in the
they have the policy on the wall.
Yeah.
They let you know. So
That's crazy.
thank you.
Brady?
Good morning.
Morning.
Polaris Pharmacy Services out of Tennessee applied for a level 3A pharmacy state pharmacy permit. Dr. Robertson reviewed the NABP reports that we have. That was done in 11/8/2023. When I go into NABP, I don't see the responses to any actions that might have come out of that inspection. But the other issue we had is that because it is a long-term care, they are requesting e-kits. We wanted to make sure that patient freedom of choice was not being affected. They do have a system that they allow nurses to get into to place orders into their pharmacy system. And because of that business model, we felt it was important that they come in and talk to us and kind of explain their business model and how they guarantee freedom of choice and that type of thing. And we do have the issue again with remote order entry across state lines. So tell us about the business model.
Yeah. And then, and he's the pick, so he'll give you a lot of the operational side. So Polaris Pharmacy Services LLC owns all the pharmacies that we either acquire or we go ahead and start. We call it Nubo Pharmacies, a new pharmacy. So we have investors and we have funds. And we started in 2016. We now have 21 pharmacies. We transact in pretty much every state. And the way we're structured, we have our CEO and our COO and our CFO. And so they, and I think we probably provided our ownership structure in the application.
It's not a nonprofit facility, correct?
No, this is a for-profit LLC.
Right.
So one thing, whenever we have long-term care specifically, or, jails and prisons, is the obligation you have for any institutionalized patients in either of those settings on how you do emergency services. So how do you guys do emergency services from, Nashville's 6 hours away?
We had come up with a couple of different suggestions. One, I think I had spoken with you about when I took the test, which was using the QBEX, which is an automated system. As soon as the nurses put in the order from the doctor into their EMR system, and automatically, or after 5-10 minutes, it populates into the QBEX system. At that point, the nurse can then go in and get whatever med they want, as long as it's a legend drug. If it's a controlled drug, then they have to call the pharmacy in order to get a number, verification number, and the pharmacist gives them that number. I know one of your questions was the right to choose, and I'm not sure how to answer that, to be honest. If they're in an institution and the doctor has prescribed the medication, prescribed an order for the patient, then at that point, when the nurse puts in the order into the EMR system and it populates into the QBEX, and they can pull the medication. The choice for us.
That's kind of a separate issue. So, and some of this may be different than what you've seen in other states. So a pharmacy can only do offsite order entry or control a device like that from within the borders of Arkansas, is the way our rules are currently.
Okay.
So if the home had an emergency kit or an EMR system, we have not allowed pharmacies beyond the border of Arkansas to actually integrate with those EMR systems.
Okay.
So it could send you electronic orders as electronic prescription for controlled substance, or just you receive it. But as far as integrating where you're able to load data into their system, and we've had this a couple times with other long-term care facilities out of state. My observation is generally the beauty of integration with an EMR system is whenever the pharmacy gets the order from the prescriber or fax from the facility, you enter in that order into the system. And if it can also populate the EMR, you have a guarantee that it matches between the pharmacy order and the EMR order, which therefore can be verified by both the nursing staff that have seen the prescriber's order or the prescriber and the pharmacy. But you can't do that across state lines for Arkansas, which is a little bit different than I think some other states. For the use of robotics, it's kind of the same thing. The board has approved some robotic systems, including Cubex, but part of the approval for that is that it's controlled because of our offsite or entry rule from a facility within Arkansas.
Okay.
So it could be that, I mean, freedom of choice being a separate issue, any A beds for the facility, there's not patient freedom of choice because the facility is getting paid to do all of their medical care. So there's not a patient freedom of choice violation for an A bed in a nursing home. For prisoners, there's not freedom of choice because the facility is responsible for all their health care and they can contract with whomever they would want to supply that. For the self-pay patients, they basically have to opt in to whatever pharmacy that they are using. Emergency kits, generally the board isn't concerned with the emergency kits freedom of choice because if it is an emergency, that there's one pharmacy that will supply an emergency kit for facility and all the patients get their meds out of there. The complication is you could do emergency kits from over the border, but you can't do a Cubex and control it from over the border, if that makes sense.
That does.
So you'd be back to the old tackle box and exchanging every couple of days. And then you've probably seen, like, we have some pretty tight guidelines on what's allowable in that.
Correct.
Whereas some states, you could have a Cubex that has, 100 legend drugs in it for whatever the patients might need. And it's really a mini pharmacy, a first dose pharmacy. Ours doesn't really work that way. It's a pretty broad list and it's actually grown, over the years, but it's still somewhat limited.
So one of the other things we come up with was having an e-kit that maybe we could exchange out drawers, having drawers that are pre-designated with certain meds and having them shipped out to the facility when they take something out of the drawer and then restock that entire drawer each time from a whatever e-kit.
We've had that as well. The only problem is if you're trying to integrate with the drawer itself, because the technology that I've seen over the years, there are some where it's just like a tackle box. The unfortunate thing with the tackle box is whatever the nurses access, the nurses have access to. The beauty of the electronic system is the pharmacy can limit which drawers will open or which pockets in the drawers, which I can't remember what they call them, and Pixis, Dr. Jolly will remind me, but whatever subsections are available are the only ones that are. With our offsite order entry rule and being candid, the board's going to have some conversations, I think, going forward about some of the retail and long-term care offsite order entry. Our rule is different than it is for hospitals. For hospitals, only a pharmacist can do any of the verification or order entry or anything else. On the retail side, it wasn't limited to just pharmacists when it was written. Now, we wrote that rule probably in like 2008 or 10. But because it involved other staff, it could only happen from another permitted pharmacy within the state of Arkansas where it's been inspected by us and everything else because it involved other staff members. There may be a change to that in the future where from another state, a pharmacist could do it, but our rules don't read that way right now.
Okay. If we had an order entry staff member in Arkansas and that was entering orders, if we had an entire staff, 1, 2, 3, and they were entering orders into our system in Nashville, would that still would that still be okay for the automated system?
So the way, if you go to offset or entry it's under the retail rule because this is a retail permit, they'd have to be in a permitted facility. So it's limited to a pharmacy permit, brick and mortar at this point. So this is oddly technical, and it's when the rule was written, there were no integrations for EMRs or anything like that happening in long-term care that we knew of or anything else. So it's written to where two permitted pharmacies could connect to each other either because they have co-ownership or written contracts upon approval by the board. So it was written where like, I mean, quite frankly, like Walgreens has an entire data center here in Little Rock that they can connect and help back up all of their pharmacies, their 60-something pharmacies in Arkansas. But they can't do it from a facility in Chicago or Deerfield or another state. On the hospital side, it was written to where you could get your Arkansas pharmacist license, and a lot of the hospital stuff has even gone to like home office type stuff as it's kind of evolved over the years, but only pharmacists are able to see any of it. So that if you had a permitted facility here, like if you thought, hey, you know what, we've got these people that are going to be doing this for Arkansas and we're going to step up brick and mortar here, it doesn't even have to be a facility with any drugs in it. So, you know, some states require you to have a certain amount of drugs to get a pharmacy permit. I don't know if you guys have seen that. So we'd have people that are in, front end processing stores or permits around the country. And there've been a state and I say, well, what prescription drugs do you have? Oh, we've got one bottle of nifedipine in a glass case where you can walk all the way around and see the lot, the expiration, everything else, because technically they had to have a drug in the building to have a permit, which sounds nuts to me, but that's the rules that they were under.
Okay.
This goes back to '08.
That's when it was, I think it's '08. I have to look, but it was first allowed around then. I came here in December of '04, and it was just a couple of years later that I think we wrote those rules. Before that, it wasn't allowed at all. There was no offsite order entry for hospitals or retail. We did the hospital rule first and then the retail rule.
Yeah, because we will open up brick and mortar once we have
A certain amount of
a
business.
certain mass. I mean, in every other state of the union where we're in, we typically start off non-resident and then
Yeah.
eventually we will build brick and mortar, but having a spot here when we don't have the mass just
Wow.
doesn't.
It's a different business model than you're used to because you can't do the EMAR control from over the border and you can't do the Cubex control from over the border. But you could do traditional emergency kits and you could do electronic orders back and forth. You just can't be integrated into it. And we've had some people where we've had to discuss further into it. Most of those EMAR systems, and I'll have, since this is on YouTube and everything else, somebody will tell me I don't know what I'm talking about, but the ones that I've seen, most of them have various levels of capability to where they can either just send electronic orders or there's full integration and they submit it to you electronically through the system itself. So usually, and it's either a push or a grab is the way I put it. Either they push it to you or you know that you go grab it. Like you get an alert that says, hey, go pull this order out, the different ones I've seen over the years. It's probably a push to you where you've got pharmacists in a setting and it's here's an order for John Kirtley and they put it in and it populates it and then it from you pushes it back into their EMAR to where it's programmed for the med pass or anything else. Then you set up first dose if it's available through the emergency kit or, delivery if it's an emergency through some other, third party or expedited service.
So if we set up a cabinet, non-integrated, just a cabinet with whatever units, shelves, drawers, whatever, and we could FedEx, UPS, whatever, next day, anything that they needed, they got something out of the kit, out of that drawer, out of that section
To exchange it.
to exchange it, and we could do that. That would be allowable.
Possibly. It depends on the kit. If it's an automated kit like Cubex has.
No, I'm talking non-electric,
Oh, yeah.
just a cabinet that is lockable, that the nurses.
Yeah,
can
similar
come in
to a
and-
tackle box, but just a cabinet, which is more secure than being able to carry out the whole tackle box.
Right.
Well, I think we've had facilities that have done just that through various delivery mechanisms. Some of them it's personal delivery or a driver, and then I know some of them are through like common carrier because it's over state lines.
But we wouldn't necessarily have to do the entire kit. We could do the section,
Yeah,
the
you can do the
drawer,
section.
the
Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah,
And
we've
the
had-
nurse would be allowed to do that.
We've had even locally, you have some people that want to put everything in one box, and you can appreciate that means you literally exchange a whole box, get it back to the pharmacy and count it. But in other areas, it's here's my refrigerated tray. Like it has to be cold chain, stable and tracked and everything else versus, if you pull 2 lisinopril out of it or 2 prednisone, some people set it up where it's many, like individual sections of a box that they can exchange, which is generally cleaner.
So is that an acceptable solution to,
I mean, I think in concept, I think that is, yeah.
because other than opening up a brick and mortar place here or changing the law,
Yeah.
that we're just trying to work with you all on a solution,
Yeah,
whatever the solution is.
You can do the emergency kits. We have rules that like it has to be replenished within 72 hours, which that's usually not the issue anybody is wrestling with. But yeah, you could do manual systems of that's a cabinet or a lock drawer or a emergency kit or something like that working with the facility. And then we have some things like, when you look at the list, that's the list of acceptable drugs for up to 70 or 75 people. Like it's one or the other. Like we had one number and then long-term care tracks it on a different number. And I think we kind of acquiesce to their number. So if it's a facility that has 120 people, it may be eligible for 2 whole kits instead of, you got 150 beds, that one kit is not enough drugs.
Every day be exchanging.
And then the other big thing that you have is, especially when someone new comes in, you have places to say, we want everything on that list. And you're going, you don't need everything on that list because that's your inventory tied up somewhere else that I know what a nightmare billing and everything else is on that when, this middle of the night and it's, okay, we got to finish the paperwork. Who got that dose of whatever? How are we going to bill it with the home? So that's the limit of how much you can put in there. But most people try to work with their home on a P&T formulary basis and see like, what do you actually need in this for, this time period? But if they try to say they want everything on the list, like nobody gets everything on the list because it's a nightmare for the pharmacy.
Yeah, that's a good thing. And members, we're here to work with you, but there's no like Polaris does it this way and this is the only way, right? So whatever the solution is, we're open to it.
And I would encourage you, kind of watch what our board meetings are coming up because it's not a law, it's a regulation or a rule. We have to call them rules now. But I think in October, the board's probably going to discuss some about like, hey, is there potentially some thought process of change on these emergency kits? We've got 2 or 3 people that want to ask about it. So it would be a time to watch. And then if it comes up for public comment, to deliver public comments on it. I think most people would be in favor of it.
Well, okay. Yeah. That's good that things are evolving.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, however we can help and provide you with our experiences in other states or what we've seen. We're fine.
And I know there were some things, are you guys planning on doing any sterile into Arkansas, sterile compounding?
At the time that we submitted our application, no, we had not planned on it.
Has that changed?
Not that I'm aware
Okay.
of. No,
All right.
no,
I didn't know if that had changed. Like, well, at that time, no, but now absolutely.
And now as we grow, as we evolve
Yeah.
and we get more clients on, we may have to, visit that. And maybe at that point, we'll be ready to open up brick and mortar here,
Sure.
we can't predict
Well,
that now.
it's one of those, it's generally such a small demand for those populations. What we've done with a lot of the out-of-state folks is just have like a MOU on file. It's not disciplinary thing, but just basically saying, hey, we understand that we're not doing any sterile at this time. If we find the need to do sterile in the future, we will revisit that issue with board staff to basically,
That's fine.
we'd want to look at a new inspection to make sure that everything's straight on sterile.
No, that's fair.
That's pretty easy
fine.
thing.
One of the things on your VPP I noticed was your non-sterile, you outsource, you don't actually, and that was a previous inspection. I don't know if you still do that with Health Mart out of Tennessee, maybe?
Yeah, Hendersonville Health Mart.
Henderson.
We are kind of doing a combination of both now. As of maybe 2 months ago, 2 months ago, we started doing our non-sterile again. But we are still only doing very simple compounds, magic mouthwashes. There's a cream in Kentucky that apparently everybody loves called Mary's Magic Butt Cream. It's a formulation their doctors came up with. We do it just because there's so much of them that our corporate want us to start doing it in-house because it's costing so much for Hendersonville Health Mart to do. As far as anything more complicated, ABHR, lorazepam gels, anything like that, they do. We transfer the script to them. They get their own script. We show them the order and they go out and try to get the script from the practitioner and they have their own script on file. And at that point, only thing we become is a courier for them to get the med to the facility.
And we,
Your courier service.
Yes.
No, Arkansas doesn't normally allow what we call central fill, where you where you do central fill compounding from another facility back to your facility. If they have their own prescription, maybe Dr. Curley can address if there's an issue with them bringing that back to their facility.
Well, we would not allow you to bring it back to your facility. If your people go pick it up and deliver it for them, that's a little different approach. Then there are some states that do allow central fill compounding, or it just happens a lot and they don't know. But it's a goofy thing that I imagine hardly ever would happen. So,
And we might even find a compounding pharmacy here in Arkansas to do and just have one of our
have them deliver it.
drivers go from there to the facility.
That'd probably be easier.
Yeah. And that's why we did Hendersonville Health Mart because it's so close to
Yeah,
us.
exactly. It's right there next to you.
yeah, we just had our NABP.
And that was one of the things you questioned. We didn't have any deficiencies in ABP.
On this last one.
The last one, she had one caveat that she was quandered in. The way the USP 797 states, she and their interpretation and our state board also said the same thing. We've since implemented this. They wanted a sheet to go through and mark off, yes, this person is doing this right, doing this right, doing this right. And that was in the hand washing, garbing, the sterilization process of the hood and the actual mixing. So we didn't have that. We were going into another system and putting in our notes or saying, yes, they passed or whatnot, but we actually didn't have a checkoff sheet.
Like
There
a
was-
training and competency form?
Right. And we've since implemented that. But that was the only thing that she had mentioned, and that wasn't even, she didn't, to my knowledge, she didn't write that as a deficiency.
Yeah, I saw the 2023 inspection, but I didn't see any findings or a response or anything. That's why I brought that up.
No, we were good. 3 months later, we had our state board inspector, and like I said, she said the same thing. The only other thing that she had remarked on was she thought that our sink in our IV room was a little small, and she wanted to see a bigger sink because technically you're supposed to be able to
Get
walk
your whole
up
arm
and
under.
allow the water to drain. It was a little small for that, and I think we're getting a bigger sink. We're waiting for November when we get recertified,
Oh, yeah.
and we're going to do all that at one time, clean everything up, and then get recertified in our room.
I think with the MOU and then before they ever send any stills and non-sterile, they
Yeah.
can check it out.
I think the only thing that staff would ask is that if we get the MOU on the sterile, that we would just revisit if they have need to do that into the state.
Freedom of choice issue. Still, I know you said that was separate.
Well, it's, the problem is the freedom of choice issue. If it's a bed, there's no freedom of choice. If they're doing a prison, there's no freedom of choice.
The drug rehab facility.
Generally in a drug rehab, people are self-pay, so they have to opt into the pharmacy. It's just so that you guys know that, almost every time I've had a freedom of choice complaint that's about any type of facility, whether it is drug rehab, assisted living, long-term care, it's almost always the facility steered someone to the pharmacy and the pharmacy's ignorant of it. Like you don't even know. So you can't have contracts that they steer everybody to you. They can't have contracts where they say either use Polaris or it's going to cost you an extra $200 a month.
Right.
Like that's that type of coercion. And it wouldn't even be money to you. It's just we see those tactics. I mean, we had a pharmacy that we said, we hear you're doing this. No, we're not doing it. No, we're not doing it. And then my mother-in-law got a letter like, hey, if you don't use this pharmacy, then and I hear my wife talking about it and I call them like, yeah, that doesn't work actually in Arkansas. That's not legal for the home or for the pharmacy. So we have that concern. And if it's a treatment facility, usually they don't even qualify for emergency kits anyway, because but we've got some that will shop around and they'll start calling people out of state and go, hey, we're a such and such facility, and we're looking for someone new to take care of our emergency kit, and they'll try to bait you into doing it. But I mean, you guys have seen that before. Like, no, you don't get an emergency kit. We're not giving you a drawer full of Suboxone and, Clendium, chlorodiazepam epoxide, any of that for that. It doesn't work that way. You can send us patient orders and we'll fill them.
Okay, do y'all have any questions of us?
What's next?
I think, staff would endorse approval of their pharmacy permit, and then we can send them the MOU for the sterile compound, if that works.
That sounds good. So you got a good understanding of what Dr. Kirtley just summarized for you all.
Yeah.
Okay.
And we'll be engaged with you guys if,
Yeah.
I mean, you have my contact info, you have
Yeah.
his contact info, just call us directly, there's no like, you gotta go to this person and that, no, just,
It's
Call
like
us.
here, you dial the phone and a human answers.
yeah, keep it simple,
Yeah.
So just so that I understand, so moving forward after today, we're gonna get issued a permit. You're going to send us an MOU
For
on
the
the
sterile
on the
compounding.
sterile.
Yeah.
And then what's the timing on that?
We can get it out pretty quickly.
It's probably Thursday. We're in hearings all day today and have to go to court tomorrow, so it'd probably
No later than Monday, we should have
Yeah.
everything.
So
yeah,
I can,
we're talking a
so I
few
can
days.
tell my CEO we did it, right?
Yeah, yeah.
We're good?
Yeah, it's
We're
coming.
good? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's fine. That's fine. Thank you all, I appreciate it.
Absolutely, thank you.
Thank you all. And safe travels back
Do you
home.
want that mailed to the West Belt Drive Suite 102 address
Or email.
or emailed?
What
That's the Nashville location.
yeah, you can
I
send
can
that.
email it.
You can do both if you want. It
Yeah.
doesn't matter, whatever's easy.
Turn around quicker.
Yeah, I mean, I'd like to see a copy, just,
Yeah.
we're growing, so, I want to make sure that I see it and it gets taken care of like yesterday,
Okay.
So.
All right. Thank you guys for coming in.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Safe travel home.
Thank you, guys.
You look next couple of days.
Yeah, the next guy told me he needed my phone to call his wife. His service is out, so I hope.
We'll see when you start getting weird text messages.
Yeah, but so he said weird taxes from overseas.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, guys.
Absolutely.
I take a break or you wanna go ahead?
I'll bring everybody in.
Well, we only have two at first.
I know, but it might help if they all just listen. So they'll be quicker here than they are up there. I'm telling you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a lot of folks out there.
Come in and watch it like you help.
Yep.
That's my guess.
I had 2 minutes, right? I get back in there.
Is this the Act 575? Is Act 575?
Wherever you want to sit. You want to sit there? All right. You want me to sit here, sir? Okay. How are y'all? Doing good, good. Morning.
I was driving down the street and I was like, that looks like Dwayne Pinion walking down the street.
Are you excited?
That was Dwayne Pinion.
Yeah. It's not every day you get to see Dwayne. You're not up yet. We've got several in them. Unless you just want to. Sharon Howell, Elizabeth Decker.
That is tab 2.
Sorry. Sorry. I get all situated here. Sorry, I have too many papers.
Counselor, if you want to introduce yourself and who you're with, I'll go through the usual introductions on this side.
Absolutely. Good morning, everyone. I'm Erica G. from Wright, Lindsay and Jennings here on behalf of Sharon Powell and Elizabeth Decker. We want to start off by saying thank you for your accommodation of letting us reschedule since Ms. Decker was going into labor at her previous appearance.
She brought proof of the
She brought-
excuse. So
Exactly. It's one of the most dramatic informals I've ever been involved in, but, you know, she's a trooper. She was trying to keep going anyway, and then she went to the hospital.
we're
So,
like,
dedication.
please no, we have yet not birthed any children in this office, and we're trying to keep that streak.
Yeah.
So thank you guys for coming in. I'm John Kirtley. I'm the director of the Board of Pharmacy. And I'm gonna tell you real quick about kind of who you're talking to up here and a couple things about the procedure. Realizing this is generally a new experience for whomever we see. On this side of the table, we're staff members here at the board, myself, Dr. Brenda McCready, who is our assistant director, Ms. Ashley Bales, who's our legal counsel. On the other side of the table, you have some of our pharmacy board members who are decision makers here in this matter today. We have Dr. Clint Boone, Dr. Lenore Newsom, who's the chair of our informal committee, and Dr. Brian Jolly. Briefly, we usually see these, it's either applications or it's some sort of other issue like a med error in these. The most important thing is I'll turn it over to our staff. They'll give just kind of a brief overview why we are here. And then generally the board members are going to have some questions for you about this. And we call it informal because we see it as a conversation back and forth over the table. At some point, the board members are going to say, okay, here's what we think we want to do with this. They're going to come up with some suggested action or decision. The most important thing for all of you is you can either agree or disagree with what they suggest. And it doesn't mean you have to do it sitting here, right now. It's generally something we would reduce to writing or send to you. If you agree with it, we do exactly whatever it is they have suggested for us to do as whatever that action is. And the range of it is anything from saying we would vote to dismiss this to we would vote to have some sort of monetary penalty to we would vote to revoke their licenses. And I give the extremes as the bookends, not suggesting that it's going to happen, just that's kind of the range. We don't know what it's going to be until they say it. I also like to point out at any point, I realize that this is stressful. And even though we call it informal, it's pretty dang formal. If you guys need to ask us anything during this, by all means, get our attention, ask us any questions you have. We're going to do our best to answer those. If you need to have a sidebar with each other or with counsel, if you need a timeout, let us know. You know, we are going to do our best to work with you. If you need to sneak around the corner and have a head-to-head with each other or something, let us know and we'll be sure that's able to happen. So I always ask, do you know why you're here today? Do you have any questions about how this works? At any point, if you do, please ask us.
Okay.
Okay. That I'm going to turn it over to our staff to give a brief overview and to kick it off.
Again, under the tab in your packet, you have an order notice of hearing. This is an informal hearing, so I'm not going to ask you to make findings of fact on it, but just to clarify, and everybody would be on the same page about what we're talking about here today. Dr. Powell's the pharmacist and Ms. Decker is the technician. They both worked at the Walgreens in Sherwood. The patient at issue is Ruby, who is a dog. And in January, Ruby was prescribed 32.4 milligrams of phenobarbital twice a day. The prescription was filled by technician Decker. She scanned one stock bottle of the phenobarbital. That bottle contained pills of the correct dosage according to the prescription. Then she overrode the scanning process and failed to scan the second stock bottle to fill the prescription. The second bottle contained 64.8 milligrams of phenobarbital. So the bottle that Ruby's parent received contained a mix of pills of both strengths. Pharmacist Powell did the final product review and didn't notice the incorrect pills were under the correct pills in the bottle, so the error in the dosage was not discovered. Then Dr. Powell put the bottle in the sack and put it in the bin to be purchased by the pet owner. She later completed a visual check again, and the error was not discovered at that point. There was no counseling done at the time that Ruby's owner picked up the medicine. As a result of the prescription error, Ruby ingested pills from the bottle for approximately 15 days and began showing signs, according to her owner, of drunkenness, ataxia, weakness, tremors, anxiety, and vomiting. She had multiple accidents where she fell into objects and fell down the steps and onto the ground. While Ruby's owner was preparing the dose to give Ruby on January 18th, she then discovered that there were two different sizes of pills in the bottle. And she took the dog to the veterinarian to see if blood work could be done to determine if there was any damage to the liver due to the overdose of phenobarbital. And at the time of the complaint, the levels in Ruby, her liver function levels were elevated. And she was having to get additional medicine from the veterinarian to prevent damage to the dog's liver.
Okay, thank you. Who wants to start and tell me kind of what happened on that day?
As Ms. Bale said, Elizabeth was the technician here, so I think we'll start with her, if that's okay with
Okay,
you.
that'd be great.
Get your butt.
Okay. Hi, I'm Elizabeth Decker. I was the technician during this time. I'm currently not a technician at the moment. My husband's deploying, so I'm moving back to Missouri. But what had happened, I had got the prescription, I picked up the right dosage of the medication. I noticed that there wasn't enough pills to fill the medication. So I went and picked up a second bottle. The second bottle looks just like the first one. The only thing different is the dosage number. So I didn't scan the second bottle. So when I went to go pour the second bottle, I didn't notice there was a size difference. So I poured them into the bottle and then continued on down to the line. Looking back at it, the second bottle that was wrong was in the wrong spot on our shelf. We do it by dosage. So it goes from the smallest dosage to the highest dosage on our shelf. And so it wasn't in the correct spot, and I had not noticed it. So that's kind of what had happened on my end. And then I sent it down the line and then continued with what I was doing previous to that.
Okay, Sharon?
Okay, it's mine on. Wanted to let you see what Elizabeth saw. I do have the handouts for everybody if you'd like.
That's a way better picture than the one on our tablet, so thank you.
I know it doesn't fax very well,
Yeah.
but you can see that they both look exactly the same, except for the small print of the size strength difference. I do have another picture in there, which is what the pills actually look like on the second page. So you'll see what me, the pet owner, was looking at in that bottle. First of all, I want to thank you for hearing us concerning this matter. I've been a pharmacist for over 40 years, and this is my love of my life of being a pharmacist. And everybody that knows me knows I love being a pharmacist. This is of immense concern to me and sorrow that an error occurred on my watch that I was part of and that harm came. I'd like to go over what happened, lessons learned, and what steps we've taken to prevent this from occurring again. We reviewed the tape when we got the state board notice. The first thing we did was pull the tape, watch the tape, and see exactly how it occurred. And that standard operating procedures, we had missed a step, so we had developed our own error in that regard. Then also when the pharmacist and me looked at it, if I had seen two different size pills And you know, like the pharmacist generally would pour some in there. We look at them to make sure the numbers match, pour them back in the lid, close it up, put it in the sack and staple it and send it on to the patient. If two different size pills had come into that, I would have noticed it and all, but what I saw in my sample in the lid was the correct one. Forever will haunt me about that and all what was below that. The next thing is that it went on to the patient. The pharmacist, meaning me, steps over to talk to them and say, sorry that you had to wait and that we have this ready for you now. It's a refill on your medication. Do you have any questions or concerns? And at that point, they said no, and it was clicked no because my technician thought it was, cashier thought it was a refill, therefore hit no. When there's many pharmacists in this room today that know me and have seen me in action, know that I counsel everybody, almost whether they want to or not, about all their medications. I care about them and how they take their drugs. The main thing that how this error occurred for us is that the patient the day before, around 5 o'clock, requested the refill request on the phenobarbital. Our computer system, because it had a Y indicator under 90-day request, flipped it into a will call back, requesting a fax to the doctor, giving it a brand new number, asking for a 90-day supply. When the patient's owner came to the counter and said they were there to pick it up, I noticed I'm going, because I had one who originally wrote the script down into writing, knew that that script had refills on it. So looked at it to indicate, took it off the 90-day will call back and went back to the original prescription with the refills that were remaining. It had already been given a brand new number by our computer system, not by me or the technician at that point. So it had a new number. Therefore, it had that cap of talk to the patient about their drug, even though this patient had been on it many, many months prior to us filling this or us filling it the second time on this particular prescription number. We have instituted training differences in all technicians at that store. We did a STARS report. We escalated it up. When we got the board notice, we reached out to the customer, and I can talk directly after I talk about what we did in the pharmacy about my interaction with the customer. It was a good interaction with her. She was very supportive and nice to me the whole entire time, which I appreciate that when I was unnerved by what it all had just happened and also. So we make sure that every technician knows standard operating procedure of how to fill a prescription, what steps that you have to do. We talk about what if this happens or this happens, how do you fix it? How should it go back to through this thing and how do you fix it at that point? We also talked about consults when the pharmacist scans it, that the technicians are, even though the patient says no, they don't want to talk to them, they can't like hurry the process to get to the next patient, that the pharmacist always touches yes or no, which one they want to. We also talked about strengths and about bottles, and we used the example of the picture there, how even strengths look, you have to have it, you have to scan every bottle. This is steps that we have to prevent medication errors, and they occur if we skip our steps and all. So we have that in place for a reason, and we talked about that too with all of them. I went into floating directly after this. It would have already been set up that as a temporary PIC for that store while they were looking to hire a new pharmacy PIC and staff person there and all. I was temporarily in there helping out, and they'd already found someone else. So therefore that's why I'm not there now and all. As a floater pharmacist in reviewing and doing everything, I don't shy away from the fact that this is how we have a conversation with store pharmacists. RXOMs and technicians wherever I go on how do you prevent medication errors at this store. And I talk about medication errors at every store I go to. I also talk to them about consults, about this is your one time to get to talk to patients. Don't ever rush this in there. That never make a patient feel that you're in a hurry, ever. And also we talk about things that we can do and what do they have in process. We also talked about, this is also part of our review process each month. The Walgreens has a peer review in which they talk about things they've noticed that went wrong that we need to correct in our store, things to get beef up on, things that we need to be doing. And all that is part of the process that went through that too, so that everyone within our store is functioning under the same guidance that the pharmacists, the RXOM and all technicians and everybody is on the same page. Any questions of that before I go to talking about the pet owner and my interaction with her? Okay, so in talking with Sarah, got the state board report, reached out to Sarah. Also, Brad was very instrumental in talking directly with Sedgwick, which handles all claims, so that would be in place setting it up to handle anything. My first encounter with Sarah was to tell her how sorry that I was that this had occurred. Her first question to me was, how are you going to prevent this from ever happening again? And so I told her how we found the error so that we could pinpoint it and what we were doing in training and to ensure that everyone within our store and other stores are aware of patient medication errors and that it's on the forefront of safety with all of our patients. And it's very much a concern. I let her know that this doesn't die with me right here. It goes one step above me, a step above them, and a step above them. It goes all the way up the ladder. This is taken very seriously within our corporation and all because we care about our patients. Told her about, I asked her, can I refill this medication, get this ready for you so your dog doesn't go without anything? She told me that she had already gotten a prescription at another pharmacy and her dog was taking the correct medication and that was taken care of. I said, well, if you need anything or reimbursed for anything, let me know. That's what we're here for. I talked to her for probably about an hour and all. Part of it was the empathy that I felt because I'd lost my pet recently before that. And in November of that, and this was in January. So I knew that the helplessness you feel when you have a pet going through this, I can't tell you. So, and talking to her in subsequent visits on the phone, that she did get help and that the company had reached out to her and that she had turned over all the claims and different things, that the dog had gotten help. The dog's blood levels had returned to normal and no liver damage that she stated and all of that had been, that the puppy had gotten care and concern and all. So wanted to make sure that everybody was taken care of, including Sarah's needs on anything that she needed from me or the company. I informed her that I was floating, but could be available at any time by her reaching out to the store manager there at Sherwood, and they would get a hold of me pronto if she needed me for any reason. You can go on forever about what if I had seen the two different size shapes. What if the patient's pet owner had seen it on twice a day, looking at the dosages, pouring them out? So many, but you can't go by that. That's pie in the sky. You have to only deal with what you have and learn from it and go forward the best that you can in preventing errors on a daily basis. That is our prime concern on top of patients' medication needs and their health. I also took it upon myself to start doing CE on medication errors to beef that part of things up. And I'm open to questions and anything, just, I hate that we're under these circumstances. Not me personally, but what occurred.
Okay, thank you for your testimony. Okay, does board members have any questions of either one of the, force.
Ms. Decker, what was your training as far, I would imagine you have to use multiple bottles on a lot of fills. You got 10 left in a bottle, but you got to fill it for 30. So I would imagine that's a pretty heavy part of your workflow is having to use multiple bottles. What was your training to scan?
Yes.
Just one or both or?
We're trying to scan all the bottles that we use. So if we open a new bottle or if there's multiple bottles that are open, we're trying to scan all the bottles. But in this incident, when I went to go scan it, I pressed override because I thought it was just overriding it because it was a new bottle. I was fairly new to the whole system. I had started back in August. So I was fairly new to all of it, but we are trained to scan every single bottle that we use through that one prescription or through a different one.
Thank you. And Dr. Powell, do you have a way on your side? Like, do they put their empty bottles in the basket for you and can you verify that all the scans were done or do you just not see that?
Whenever they
detail?
use a patient bottle to fill something, is that what you're saying?
Stock bottle, manufacturer
bottle.
bottle.
They never send the stock bottles down except for C2s
Okay.
and return back to the pharmacy, but no other bottles are sent down unless they use a patient stock bottle. And if they're using a patient stock bottle, that alerts the pharmacist to take extra time and care and diligence in making sure what was in the original bottle is correctly now in this bottle being given to the patient. And the computer alerts us and the technicians alert us by the bottle and the computer will tell us that no scan was done.
But that was gonna be my question. Like if you use one of these, there's not a scan, so it's a manual check on it.
It doesn't tell us that they overrode that.
Yeah.
Can they manually key that NBC number in?
We train them not to manually key in anything because if they manually key in something, then it doesn't alert me as a pharmacist that you overrode the scales. We train them that if you don't override the scales, you can do a label, put it on there, send it down to me. And then when I scan it, it tells me they overrode the scales. No, excuse me, that they did not use the scales in this product. Take double care and time.
So if you have two different tablets, two different brands in one bottle, do they do that? Do you put two different brands in one bottle?
No.
So they go into separate bottles?
We don't dispense
Never
two different
dispense two different-
NDCs.
Okay.
We never dispense two NDCs.
So if they do override it, you're saying as the pharmacist, you have no way of knowing, there's no indication when you go to check that this was overridden or not verified?
There's no piece of cotton on top of one and put the other in on top?
No, that's old pharmacy. I don't do that anymore.
You'd be surprised how often you see it.
Oh, really? Yeah, that's no longer the practice in which we
Good.
practice, but yes, back when we first started, yes.
Be careful.
I've seen this with this repackager, relabeler, and I think all their labels have always just been black and white, where generally the originator, like on this one, Qualitas is the supplier, they would have like a highlighted box where you'd have a yellow one and a red one and a blue one or something to designate. So we've seen some of that, and that's probably a real good tip to share with your pharmacist and your techs, that when you get this, you're already set up to fail because it looks so similar.
Right. Dr. Powell, you said you had done some CE. How many hours have you done on
This particular one was 2 hours. And that particular time on the free CE, they only had one that was available. And that's the one that I did. And I had to go back into the archives and pull that one out to get it to be able to do that one.
So 2 hours?
2 hours is what I'd done.
I actually had a follow-up, but I didn't want to interrupt to my right. In this matter, there was a lot of kind of complicating factors or things that happened. But My assessment is really the root cause of it is you didn't scan the second bottle. I'm just being, so she was trying to scan the second bottle, but she didn't do it. So she deviated from policy and procedure, which is an issue. How is Walgreens able to monitor that? Because this could very easily happen again if you don't have a way of knowing that someone didn't follow policy. Do you guys observe it and correct it if you see that a scan's not being done? I mean, I tried to initially was hoping that you had a way through maybe your paperwork to be able to tell, but it sounds like that's not a
No, I
possibility.
went through everything on the computer to go from beginning to end on step by step by step and everything. And none of that showed what had happened at the, other than the tape. We wouldn't have known if we hadn't seen the tape.
I
And
think that's maybe an opportunity for some enhancement to the software down the line, not for us to solve today. But unless you can verify the workflow, it's still it's still going to be a risk moving forward unless you're watching. And I would imagine you're too busy to watch everything that's being done. So that's not for us to solve today, but that's just something that I've seen in other software where the steps that the technician took are there that you can validate. And if there was something not scanned, you're able to tell overridden or not scanned or something like that. So it's really, or just feedback and looking at, like I said, what the root cause of this issue was.
as a floater, I have the unique opportunity to come into contact with a larger group of individuals within pharmacy other than just at one store. And I'm pretty transparent on talking about medication errors and how do we prevent and what are y'all doing here at this store? Just so that
And that's great.
I want to know
That's
what are
great.
y'all doing, so
great.
that now that I'm in this position, I want to know what everybody else now is doing.
And I think education around med errors is extremely important. But the reality is when you look at what's most effective, it's things like barcode scanning and hard stops and things like that. And education, while very important, is unfortunately, one of the less effective ways to prevent it. It's really forcing functions and some of that type of stuff that really can. So I know.
I think Mr. Lawson would like to speak to that.
Sure. Yeah, I think it'd be good to kind of just level set on what our current process is, but then also what we're working toward with DSCSA coming down the line.
Okay.
So we do have an internal non-punitive process when it comes to quality events and a reporting of those events so that we can all learn from those. Dr. Powell mentioned earlier about a peer review, and what that is actually an internal process we use per store per month where we identify potential quality events that we've either seen in the store at the local level or being brought down systematically from our support center to identify different trends we're seeing in quality events. And so we're coaching through those, whether we've seen those or we've seen them in other stores to proactively prevent them. And then reviewing of the stars, which is what our the non-punitive reporting process is, reviewing of that of our own errors that we make, but then also as a store and coaching through that. But to your point about the systematic approach, so DSCSA coming down the line is going to change a lot of different things. Dr. Curley brought up about the return to stock bottle and billing that. So we're actually going to have a 2D barcode on return to stock bottles where we'll be able to scan and match everything up. And then to your point about scanning that second bottle with the enhancements from DSCSA, we're going to be able to identify that we expect to only have this amount left in this bottle of this lot number, and then therefore would have to require another lot number that we would potentially have to scan secondly. So there are some enhancements that are coming from that, but we do currently have the internal process of coaching in the moment when we identify that the scale's been overridden. But then also the monthly focus around quality is what we use to coach on a local level.
Okay, thank you. So you're moving back to Missouri?
Yes, sir.
You still have an active technician permit?
I do.
are you planning on, what's your plans for the future with your permit? Are you going to keep it? Are you going to?
I would like to keep it. I'm currently going back to school for medical billing and medical coding. So I'd like to keep it in case something doesn't work out with my schooling in that future job. Because my plan is we're stationed here in Arkansas. So my plan is to eventually move back home. And we have a family pharmacy down at home that I would like to work at and get a job at. So that's my goal as of right now while I'm still in school.
Okay.
Dr. Kirtland?
So what do you want to do? This one could have been any of us.
Mhm. True.
I mean, it's interesting. We're having our sidebar, like getting a new number assigned, even though you're doing a refill on a prescription would indicate talking to the patient, but it's not a failure to counsel issue in my mind.
Counseling probably wouldn't have caught it.
No, I mean, you look at the pills and they're different sizes, but they're pretty dang close. And I can completely see how having counted for, it's like, oh, I've got 23, I pour them in the bottle, and then I go get the next bottle and I get my other, 37 to get my 60, and then I pour them and they're on top. So sometimes you just get snake bit on the stuff. I think,
Well, I feel like sometimes these phenobarbs are like 120 tablets.
they're huge
I
bottles.
mean, they're always big. My past, they were always big
Especially for dogs.
quantities. Yeah.
I know pharmacies that would talk about before it was a controlled substance, they would just draw a line on a bottle and fill it up to that every time they bring it back. Now, given that's ancient history, but before it was a control or before anybody cared about it, but it's massive numbers of it.
I was thinking continuing education for both of them.
I think that's appropriate.
I mean, Dr. Powell already shared like a corrective action plan. If you guys want to see that, that would be great. Not that there necessarily needs to be any action on that. You may already have it.
And this is a great write-up of, we have, since all of us were in pharmacy school, no matter how long ago it's been, educated people on these look-alike bottles are
problematic. I know this is terrible. I mean, there's only one part of that text that's even different.
Well, I think there's opportunity too for the pharmacy to change practice. And if you're filling out of two bottles, those need to go down the line. Some way to indicate that two bottles are being used, because it's not just this drug. It happens in every pharmacy, but there needs to be a process of, if you're using two separate drugs, maybe more than just scanning, of getting those to the pharmacist so they know to check, we use two separate bottles here.
Brad, do you guys have like educational modules in your system for med airs? There you go.
We do, yes. We do.
Okay.
And so what do you want to do?
And I was thinking 10 hours of CE for each of them for round med airs. No other, I don't have any other suggestions outside of that.
Everything to add to?
I'll second that. It's a motion.
Do you want me to be more official though? Do I need to go through the matter of case numbers? Okay, don't have to do that. Okay. So my motion is 10 hours of CE for each to be completed by December the 31st of this year.
Okay. We have a motion by Dr. Jolly and a second by Dr. Bowman. Do we have any public discussion? If not, all in favor of the motion, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any nays? Motion passes.
Already.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, guys. Thank you. Appreciate it. It's good seeing you.
In addition.
It's in addition.
Thank you. Let us reset here for a second.
You want to need to break it down.
Going.
Okay.
I'll show you a little trick too.
What did I do?
I just figured it out
hit
yesterday.
that and
I'll show you.
what
I'll show
the-
you what to do. So it's SD card. Now, once you're in there, say you went into this, instead of hitting the back arrow, just hit that day two.
Oh, okay.
And it'll
The date.
just hit the day.
Okay, all right, thank you.
I just figured that out this morning.
Here, take my tablet.
She's not gonna do it.
Okay.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Running into you. What are you about?
I'm just.
To rearrange everything. Hey, y'all playing musical chairs over there.
We are, sorry about that.
This is gonna be Walgreens, Phelan and Carnation.
I can get to my documents again. Four. Morning, everybody. Morning. I think that all of you heard the whole run through the last time, and I can save us 5 or 6 minutes of me droning on if you already understand that. If it's okay, I'll kick it off to you guys to introduce who all you got at the table.
I've got,
Okay.
Okay, and again, I'm Erica G. We have here Bob Carnation, and then we have Alicia Llewellyn from the healthcare supervisor for the store that's involved here. And we've got somebody on Zoom who's actually for the next case. She's not on this one.
All right. Hey, I think you guys have kind of heard the overall approach of how these cases work. If it's all right with everyone, I will kick it straight off to staff to give a brief overview of kind of the order notice.
All right, and the order of notices in your packet, just for guidance. This prescription came in March of 2024. Patient we're referring to as patient A is a 4-year-old child. She was prescribed azithromycin 20 milligrams 5 ml with orders for 200, what did I say? 200 milligrams, sorry, 5 ml with orders for shake well and give patient A 150 milligrams by mouth on day 1, then shake well and give patient A 75 milligrams by mouth for 4 days. Technician Thompson was working at the Walgreens 21576, input the prescription. That prescription was for the queue for Walgreens 7234. She put the azithromycin into the system with the incorrect dosage. The wrong dosing directions were entered into the computer and then returned to the queue for the pharmacist review and verification. Pharmacist Carnation reviewed and verified the input prescription from the other Walgreens, Walgreens 15797. Dr. Carnation did not discover Technician Thompson's dosing error made in the input process and subsequently sent the prescription to the filling queue with the wrong dose and directions. The prescription was then filled at Walgreens 7234, where respondent pharmacist Phelan was working, and he verified and dispensed the prescription. He was the pharmacist that counseled the patient's caregiver. According to the complaint from the caregiver, while counseling her, he made the comment that the dosage seemed kind of high, but that if that's what the doctor wanted to do, I guess we'll do it. Then patient A was dispensed azithromycin 20 milligrams 5 ml with order to shake well and give patient A 15 mLs by mouth on day one, then shake well and give patient A 7.5 mLs by mouth for 4 days. The parent administered the first dose as dispensed, and then the patient ingested the incorrect dose of medication for the first dose. The parent then, while drawing up the second dose, realized there was not enough medication remaining to complete the regimen as outlined on the label, and then called Walgreens. And this was the second type of thing that had happened at this Walgreens store. There's a previous situation that brings the other half of the room in front of you. But it was for the same patient that happened in November.
Okay. Who wants to start first? Okay,
Yes,
go
I can
ahead.
start. I'm Bob Carnation. I've been doing this 40 years. I still love going to work every day. I drive 6 hours a day to work. I've always worked at the stores way out in the state that nobody else wants to go to for Walgreens. And I've worked at slow stores. I've worked at busy stores. I've managed 3 stores. I've worked at Miss Lenora's store in Camden. And I managed the Harrison store before I went to Waldron, and we did 700 to 1,200 prescriptions a day there. And by working there, I could tell you we appreciated help with the data review and typing from other stores because it was really tough. And so I went to a slower store. I've developed stenosis, and now I'm only working 50 hours a week instead of 60. And I went to a slower store, doesn't have a drive-in, and I try to help do data review at other stores. Sometimes I do 200 or 300 a day. Sometimes I do over 1,000 a week besides my own store. And I'm not making an excuse. I'd had blurred vision at that time, and I'd made an appointment with my optometrist, and it takes a month to get in to see him. And in fact, it was the day after the eclipse is when I got in. I think this was about 2 weeks after the incident. I'm not using that for an excuse, but I just let one get by me. I'm very sorry. This has never happened before. I mean, we all make mistakes, but I've never had one like this. And I'm embarrassed to be here, and I'm very sorry. But I still love going to work every day. I'm 71 years old. I just let one get by me. That's all I can say. And I'm very sorry.
Well, how's the patient?
I'm sorry.
How's the patient?
I
Have you
think the patient's fine,
Okay,
but it wasn't at my store. It's a Tim's store.
yeah. Can you fill us in? How's the patient? Have you had any contact with the patient? Okay. Did you reach out to the patient? Okay, is the PIC here?
I can answer that. The pharmacist who was on duty when the error was discovered was Van. She is also a float pharmacist, but she spoke to the patient. They reviewed what had happened. Van reached out to the doctor's office, reviewed with the doctor what the next steps that they wanted to take, and then she called the patient back to resolve it and then put in the STARS event. So Van Tran was the one who had reviewed that with the patient.
I'm sorry, I may have missed. Are you a pharmacist or?
Yes, I'm a pharmacist for Walgreens. I'm a healthcare supervisor is the role that I'm in.
Okay, thank you. I mean, I believe they called poison control and got some insurance from them. It's in one of the letters, but
Was there a DUR event? That was overridden.
I remember.
I would have got the meetings.
Okay, it got to me after it had been filled. So my primary responsibility was to verify that the right drug was filled. And then it gets bagged and put in the bins for pickup. And then when the patient comes in to pick it up, then I counsel them. But DURs and all are done at review after, before it gets to me. All that's done before it's even printed at the store.
He doesn't see the.
Right.
Yeah, I can't even see the hard
The-
copy or the instructions. All I see is when I scan it after it's filled, I verify that the correct patient, correct drug, correct quantity. all the order entry and verifications done before it prints at the store.
The answer to your question is no. The audit report does not show a DUI.
This meeting has been taken over